Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Films and Stuff. I am Ethan, joined by Pete. Hey, Pete, what's up?
Not much, buddy. How are you?
It is a good day today because we've got our weekly stream or skip episode. Pete, every week I challenge you to give a synopsis of what is stream or skip. I will do the same today in 25 seconds or less. Give us the rules.
Do it. Ethan and I have prepared a list of TV shows we'd like each other to watch. The goal is to watch at least 2 episodes of that show or 30 minutes if it's a feature-length program. Based on that viewing, we determine if that show is worthy of being streamed or skipped.
Just like the name. Makes sense. Pete, without further ado, what was your assignment and what was the summary of it?
I had to watch The Artful Dodger.
Sounds like a baseball movie, is it?
It does kind of, but it absolutely is not.
Oh.
So I'm going to caveat this first off by saying that it was originally a Hulu show. But in some territories, it was streamed on Disney+.
Okay.
So your mileage may vary. I ended up seeing it on Disney+. I was not able to access it on Hulu.
Oh, okay.
The short of it is that The Artful Dodger is a sequel to Oliver Twist.
No way.
Yeah.
Huh.
So this is where things get interesting.
I don't think I know that much about Oliver Twist.
I remember reading it a long time ago while I was still in maybe even middle school. I don't even think I read it in high school, but it's been a long time. But it focuses on Jack Dawkins, who was a part of Fagin's gang.
Oh, man. I'm totally out of my Oliver Twist comfort zone.
Sure. Okay.
Was he British or American?
British.
He was British and he was like an orphan, right?
That's right.
He was like the American equivalent of like Huckleberry Finn.
Kind of. That's right. And
okay.
The idea was that, and again, you're going to have to, massive caveats with all of this, listeners. In fact, if you remember this story better than me, feel free to leave a very long comment about how I'm butchering this.
Educate us.
Yeah. So the whole point is that Oliver Twist joins this like street gang, and one of the members of that street gang is Jack Dawkins, and they both work for Fagin, but Fagin is genuinely not a good guy. So Oliver Twist, I think if I remember correctly, leaves the gang, and eventually so does Jack Dawkins. This takes place years after Jack Dawkins has left this gang as like this street level, like child.
They're like pickpockets, right?
Thief, pickpocket, exactly.
Yeah.
And we find out that he's moved to Australia because, you know, obviously a lot of British people were able to move to Australia. It was still their own colony back then. And he is now working as a surgeon, if you can believe it.
He went from a pickpocket to a surgeon?
Yeah. And not just any surgeon, but like a very successful surgeon that's very well known. I guess because he wanted to restart his life. And he's
why wouldn't you?
Yeah, naturally, right? So he's reforming his life. He's restarting everything by, you know, moving on from being a pickpocket. So, of course, this is a period piece. It's set in the 1800s, so 19th century. He is the surgeon, and he also has to check out all the prisoners that are coming in from the UK to Australia, which is still known for being a penal colony. And guess who's on the ship? Fagin, his old boss.
Huh.
He's kind of like juggling 2 hats in the air or 2 balls in the air, where he's trying to move on from his past life. He doesn't want it to be exposed that he was a pickpocket and basically a nobody from England. And whereas he's built himself up a good life with a reputation in Australia.
Right.
Then there's also a little bit of a love interest story because the governor's daughter wants to be a surgeon, but obviously she can't be because she's bound by societal rules about women and their role in the workplace and their role in the family place. The first 2 episodes kind of give you a little bit of backstory about Jack's predilections for unsavory behavior. So you see that even though he is a successful surgeon, he goes to seedy pubs, he gambles, he plays poker, he loses money, he's got a huge debt. He's kind of forcing himself into having to work with Fagin so that he can kind of get himself out of the financial bind that he's in.
No.
There's a lot of cliches. There's a lot of things that you can kind of see coming up. Like, I'm sure that there would be much more of a love interest interaction between the governor's daughter and Jack, and he's going to have to try to hide his past. And Fagin.
How many episodes did you watch?
I only watched 2 episodes.
Oh, man.
And I watched only 2 episodes because, long story short, this is a skip from me.
Oh.
But not because the show is bad. It's just not my cup of tea. No pun intended. This is a period piece, which, again, I already am not a huge fan of.
Oh, man, I'm the same.
It's based on Oliver Twist, which, again, was a story from when I was a kid
it doesn't mean
I
a lot
wasn't
to
particularly interested in.
Yeah.
I will say, set design, pretty excellent. Costume design, even better. So if you're someone like my mom who loves period pieces, who loves fictional stories set in colonial British era times, this is 100% a show for you. But this is not for me. So it's a skip for me. The caveat is that at most I could make this a mooch for me, but again, it's not. Take that as you will. A skip by circumstance, not because the show is genuinely bad.
I mean, we'll take that. Is it only 1 season or there's more than 1 season?
I don't think there was more than 1 season, maybe 2, but I don't know if they wrapped it up or they continued. I'm not sure.
You know, the idea seems kind of interesting though, right? Because you base it a little bit on an existing intellectual property, but you don't make it necessary that person is kind of like, for you and I, we don't know the Oliver Twist story very well. It's not really necessary that we know the story. It just gives us like a little bit of context. So for people that love the story, they might be interested in this. But for those that don't, you know, it's okay as a standalone piece. So I have to say it's a little bit interesting. Do they have to pay royalties then?
I'll bet they do because it's the same characters.
Yeah.
And in this way, I think it's similar to what Amazon Prime did with the Fallout series, which is we'll set it in the same established universe of the Fallout video games.
Yeah.
But we will not make this a story that we've already played through in the games.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there was a literary sequel to Oliver Twist. I have no idea.
Yeah, I have no idea either.
I'm assuming there isn't, but I could very well be wrong. Again, not my cup of tea. Haven't thought about Oliver Twist since I had to read it for whatever class I took in middle school English.
Yeah,
that was the last I probably, even saw a physical version of that book. So yeah. So that's The Artful Dodger on Hulu/Disney Plus. It's a skip from me. What did you end up having to watch, Ethan?
Well, I was on Amazon Prime this week, and I had to watch something called Good Omens.
High expectations.
You do?
Yeah, because it's got David Tennant, Michael Sheenan, high quality actors.
Neil Gaiman, right?
And it's a Neil Gaiman property. That's right.
Right? The guy who did Sandman.
Yep.
Interesting that you say that it's got such high expectations. I didn't know anything about this.
Sure.
So I guess the way that I usually do the streamer skips is I don't do a lot of research before I watch them. I usually do a lot of research after. So not knowing who any of the characters were, not knowing that Neil Gaiman was the creator, not knowing that it was even based on books, I watched 2 episodes after less than 5 minutes. I mean, I didn't get a good vibe at all in the first episode. Even from the beginning, it started not great for me. I would have stopped at 1 episode. I mean, if I were not doing this for you, for us, for films and stuff, I mean, I definitely would have stopped probably after the first 5 or 10 minutes and I would have gone to something else, Stuck through it for the first episode. Didn't do anything for me. John Hamm is in it, and I love John Hamm.
Okay.
But he's got a very bit role, to be honest. Watched the second episode, didn't get me anywhere else. Then I went back and I did a lot of research. And for me, it's a straight skip. Sometimes they're kind of like, well, it's a soft skip, or, well, it's not really my cup of tea, but I didn't see anything redeeming about this. I thought all the cast is doing a very good job. There was just nothing about the series that I thought it wasn't funny, although I saw the attempts at humor. I didn't think the storyline was interesting. It didn't teach me anything. It didn't give me like a new perspective or anything. It didn't have any of the hooks that would give me any reason to kind of find a redeeming quality in it. I thought, honestly, the whole thing was pretty rubbish. Then I did research and the reviews, and I was really surprised that the critic reviews were very high. The audience reviews were generally, you know how it is on Metacritic and on Rotten Tomatoes. There's a big swath of people who are like, yeah, generally favorable, right? Okay. And it kind of means, I always feel it's a little bit of a cop-out for the shows where people are like, yeah, I don't really love it, but like, fine, it's generally okay, you know? They don't hate it. All the audience reviews were kind of like lukewarm or tepid. And then I read a little bit more about it. So it has had 2 seasons. Season 1 was 6 episodes. Season 2 is 6 episodes. So it's kind of one big season. Apparently it's been greenlit for a 3rd season, but that apparently is a little bit in flux due to writer's strike and other stuff. It seems like it's not going to have a 3rd season. I mean, it doesn't really seem like it's going anywhere. Let me give a synopsis about what this is about.
Yeah.
It's the classical biblical story, the good angel and the demon, right? Representing the devil.
Yeah.
They're both embodied on earth as human beings, acting as you would expect. The angel is kind of like a goody two shoes. The devil or the demon is, mean, but they don't really fill their roles exactly. They kind of have like humanistic qualities. So for example, the angel is a foodie, likes expensive wines, indulges a little bit, is enjoying kind of like the good life on earth, but very polite and decent and such. The demon, on the other hand, as you can imagine, dresses in black, not really a good guy, but at the same time, like he goes through life, like he drives a car, he drives on the correct side of the road, like he follows traffic rules. I mean, he has like an office, he must pay rent or something, right? So like they kind of put like this humanistic quality to both the angel and the demon, showing that I guess there's a little bit of a gray area in both of them. And of course, the angel is carrying out God's plan, whatever that is. The demon is carrying out the devil's plan, whatever that is. And then we find that there's supposed to be this big plan by the devil to create like an Armageddon. And somehow it's a little bit mucked up. The angel and the demon, who know each other, decide to kind of work in cahoots to stave off Armageddon, because they both kind of concede they're happy with their life on Earth. And just this one time, they'll cooperate for the greater good. They will prevent the world from ending. The angel justifies this as, he's saving humanity. The demon somehow justifies it as, he fixes his cock up or something. Again, it's kind of glossed over, not exactly factually accurate. So you find, just like a lot of good cop, bad cop movies, 2 very different characters are teaming up, even though in this one case they have a common interest. It's supposed to be funny. It's supposed to show the dichotomy of these 2 characters. The 2 actors, fantastic. Just, I'm not getting anything. Like I read a lot of articles that talks about like their great on-screen chemistry and how they play off each other. Maybe that's true in the acting sense. It's not true in a humor sense, and this is supposed to be a comedy.
Is it a comedy that's, a slapstick ha-ha comedy, or is it like a comedy which is like a little bit more British, which is a little bit more, let's say, cerebral and less about minute-to-minute laughs?
It's...
You know what I mean? Kind of like Ted Lasso in that sense, right?
No, it's definitely not Ted Lasso-ish. I feel like they didn't really find their footing.
Okay.
Because there's also a narrator, Frances McDormand, who narrates as God. So there's a lot of, I feel like it's intended to be a little bit like a spoof, Like it's supposed to be a little bit like funny in that way, but none of it is coming off the right way, you know? The parts written for John Hamm are definitely John Hammish writing.
Okay.
You know, he gives like his little shrugs and his little grins and his little, you know, like he's kind of like too cool for school kind of stuff. But it's somehow not right. Like it just doesn't it just doesn't come off well. So I'm not sure exactly what the problem is, but it's trying to be like kind of silly funny, but at the time kind of like subtle British humor at the same time. And I feel like it's not really like catching either of those two exactly flush. Okay. You know, it's just off. I think is the best way to say it. Like you can kind of see where this is going. You're like, okay, I'm supposed to laugh here. Like I get it. Like that's written to be funny, but none of it was really like sticking. The story itself, again, we've seen this, good versus evil. Okay, the two, you know, characters who should be like arch enemies or working against each other, you know, need to team up for the greater good in this one instance. Again, it just doesn't really fit. And I think one of the reasons it doesn't fit is that the angel and the demon are actually humans. They have some powers, but like, you know, sometimes you watch like, you know, like Vampire Diaries or something, right? Mm-hmm. And they actually have like very big powers. You just don't actually like kind of see them use them all the time, right? And here they're actually kind of humans. I mean, they have to drive, they have to eat. They can't just like snap their fingers and appear and disappear in different places. They've got all the normal like challenges of a human, even though occasionally they can like use some powers. It just wasn't coming off on the right way. So like I said, usually a show needs something to like hook me in. It needs to be funny. It needs to be interesting. It needs to kind of like teach me something. It needs to have a scenario that kind of like blows my mind. This didn't really have anything. Well done. I mean, all the actors, I mean, are very well accomplished in this. They all do, I think, about as good of a job with their role, but somehow it just didn't like coagulate in the right way.
Okay.
I give this a clear skip. I'm only surprised that the reviews were so good. I'm surprised by Neil Gaiman was in it. I'm surprised by, you know, the level of cast in here. Michael Sheen is great. Miranda Richardson is great. John Hamm is fantastic. I mean, everyone here is very, very good. It just didn't come together in the right way. Kind of showing, I mean, it's not easy to do, right? I mean, creating a show is not easy. This is based on a book, and from what I've read, it's very, very, I guess, loyal to the book itself. But maybe that is a little bit of the challenge that it presents, is that being so loyal, what comes off on page doesn't come across as well on screen. So with much reflection, this is a big old skip. That's Good Omens on Amazon Prime Video.
Oh, that's a shame, but understandable.
It's life. Can't have all subscribes. Turning to next week, we've got new assignments, so fear not. We may have a better luck next week. What do we have?
So for next week, you are going to be on Apple TV Plus.
Boom.
And you will be watching Masters of Air, starring Elvis Presley himself, Austin Butler.
Oh, man, Austin Butler.
I will be on Hulu, maybe Disney Plus, who knows, watching a mini-series that's called 11/22/63, or for our international audience, 22/11/63.
Yeah, man, I cannot keep straight what is day or month. I really think globally it would not be that difficult to just agree on, should it be day first or month first, right?
Yeah, agreed. I don't know anything about Masters of Air. I have seen the trailer for it, so I have a guess as to when it's set.
Is it World War I or World War II?
I think 2, because I have a sneaking suspicion that 2 was really the quote-unquote jet engine war. Right?
You're right.
Not 1.
Do you know anything about where Austin Butler came from? Because like when he was Elvis, that's the first I've heard of him, but that seems unlikely. Do you know anything about his backstory?
No, very little actually. So when when it was announced that he was going to play Elvis in the biopic, I was actually quite pleased because I always think that hiring a no-name, again, not to be disrespectful, but someone who's not, an A-tier star, I think that's generally helpful for biopics because you want the movie to be about the person you're portraying, not obviously this guy. I'm sure he's been in other shows and other movies, but it's certainly not a name I would have recognized before Elvis.
Yeah. So, I mean, I knew him from Elvis, which is the first time I heard of him. Then I know that he was in Dune 2, even though, to be honest, he looks unrecognizable. So He's unrecognizable, which makes you wonder whether it was needed, but neither here nor there. And then, of course, he was now in Masters of Air. So I'll be interested. I'll do a little bit of research on him because he's someone I'm not very familiar with at all. He's also in The Bike Riders. I think I put that as kind of one of my wild cards for the summer blockbuster.
You did.
Okay. That's all I've got for Streamer Skip. I'm looking forward to Masters of Air. Let's see. What do we have to add for social details and such so people can comment, click, subscribe, bell ring, and such?
Yep. If you are a fan of The Artful Dodger or of Good Omens, or you think Masters of Air is great, or if you think 11/22/63 is terrible, or vice versa, reach out to us, leave a comment below this video, like the video, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, all that YouTube jazz. Tweet at us at F&S Podcast or DM us on Instagram at Films and Stuff Podcast. We'd love to hear from you.
Pete, as always, a pleasure. Looking forward to reviewing these two on the next stream or skip episode of Films and Stuff Podcast. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Have a lovely weekend ahead.
Thanks, Ethan. Thanks, everyone.
Cheers now. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.